Kev. I'll wait till I see it. You're recording now. Okay.
Okay, we can go ahead and start.
Good evening. My name is Bart Rocco. On behalf of my Grable colleague, Dr. Bille Rondinelli, we welcome you to the third session in the Transform for Tomorrow series, What's Working in Schools Now? The program this evening is made possible by the support of the Grable Foundation, the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, Remake Learning, and our friends at Digital Promise. In our preparation for the program tonight, we've talked to many school leaders about how they are currently implementing professional development to their staffs. In tonight's series, we will hear from leaders who are providing PD in a unique and interesting way. Many of our teachers are overwhelmed, and we've heard that numerous times from all the leaders we've talked to about how to deal with all this balance of instructional strategies, teaching virtually, teaching hybrid. And we know that school leaders need strategies too on how to approach teacher learning as well. So we're really looking forward to tonight's presentation, and it's my honor and pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Bille Rondinelli, to introduce our presenters for this evening. Dr. Rondinelli.
Thank you, Dr. Rocco. It is my honor to first introduce Dr. Baron Davis. Dr. Baron Davis, as an educator for more than 20 years, is Richland School District 2 Superintendent and is the first African-American to hold this position in the district's 90-plus years history. Dr. Davis has advanced the district's longstanding commitment to providing superior learning experiences in top-notch facilities. Under his leadership, voters in Richland 2 approved a request to borrow $468 million to address district facility needs in the areas of safety, security, academic learning spaces, transportation, technology, and arts and athletics. The bond referendum projects are just part of a 10-year facility plan that was part of Dr. Davis's initial strategic plan in the district. Dr. Davis has made increasing recruitment and retention of male teachers of color a priority by launching the Premier 100 initiative. About 6% of Richland 2's teachers are male and minority. In keeping with his focus on innovation as a principal who practiced in the district, Dr. Davis, as assistant superintendent at that time, spearheaded the district's membership and renewal into the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools, to which they are still a proud member. During his educational career, Dr. Davis has served as a successful school leader in rural, urban, and suburban school systems, where his schools were recognized for closing the achievement gap, increasing graduation rates, and increasing advanced placement participation rates. Dr. Davis has been honored with a multitude of awards and recognitions. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree in sociology from Francis Marion University, from the University of South Carolina. He earned master's degree in school counseling and educational administration, an educational specialist, and Doctor of Philosophy degrees in educational counseling. He holds superintendent, school counseling, secondary principal, and secondary supervision certifications. Dr. Davis is a Columbia native and a member of the Brooklyn Baptist Church. He and his wife, Pamela, have two daughters who attend school in Richland 2 and another who recently graduated from a district high school. It is also my pleasure to introduce one of our local Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools leaders, Superintendent Dr. Randal Lutz from the Baldwin-Whitehall School District. Dr. Lutz has been a public school administrator with 25 years of professional experience in nearly all facets of K-12 school systems. He served as a curriculum elementary supervisor, an assistant superintendent, principal, and is a member, as we said, of the prestigious League of Innovative Schools. He received his doctorate degree from the University of Pittsburgh and also holds a BS and a master's degree as well. Dr. Lutz is responsible for work on the PASA Board of Governors. He has served as president of SHASDA Superintendent's Advisory Group in our region. He has been the lead superintendent for Area 5 school districts for Steele Center. He's a member of the Western Pennsylvania Superintendents Forum. He is a member of Cohort 36 of Leadership Pittsburgh and serves on the AIU Leadership Services team. Dr. Lutz and his wife live in the Baldwin-Whitehall School District, and they also are the proud parents of two daughters. It is my pleasure to now introduce Dr. Randy Lutz. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rondinelli. What a great night tonight. As we start talking about professional development, and And you think March 2020, that month should go down in history as a month in which public education in the United States changed forever, or at least it should. And if it does not, then we've all really missed a potential, the best opportunity to truly change education in America that we may ever see. From the days of Horace Mann and John Dewey, educators have been desperately trying to change and reform what we teach, when we teach, how we teach it, and who we teach it to in some ways. Professional development for faculty and the staff is really a key between these silos of innovation that we may see in schools, and really just creating some really organizations of excellence. And so as we think about professional development for faculty in a world of remote and hybrid learning, that conversation really only began this summer and this fall because that environment didn't exist for us. But building that foundation and a foundation that can endure all of these conditions has been really a key to the success for not only during the COVID times, but to ensure lasting, meaningful change as we create our new everyday normal. And in our district, we've been talking about not just getting back to normal, but getting back to better. And tonight we get a chance to share with you how we've been doing that. So not only locally, and I have two folks here from the Baldwin-Whitehall School District, Jill Fleming-Salopek and Andrea Huffman, but also just really blessed to be in a conversation with Dr. Davis from Richland. And so I want to kick it to Dr. Davis and hear a little bit about how he has been working through and with his teachers in professional development in Columbia. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Dr. Lutz, and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. Thanks for the opportunity from the Gable Foundation as well as League of Innovative Schools for the opportunity to kind of spotlight and highlight what we're doing here in South Carolina, particularly in Columbia, in Richland School District 2 as it relates to professional development during this time. I couldn't agree with you more about the statement about we have been talking about being innovative when it comes to education for so long now. And it's almost like COVID, the challenges of the pandemic with COVID has really pushed us off of the past the start line, and now it's time to really run this race. And we here, just like you have talked about, we're not just trying to brace and go back to normal. We want to be better than we were when we come out of the pandemic. We should be stronger from a professional development or from our capacity to deliver instruction to all students almost at any time. And so that's something that has been foremost for us. I used the terminology with my staff and earlier today about this is an opportunity for us to blow up the way we are currently delivering educational experiences for our students and redevelop or develop a new way of doing so. So it's very promising, and I call it being promisingly disruptive is what it is. It's a promisingly disruptive. So we have a chance to really kind of design what we know could be more equitable learning experiences for our students. What we've done in our district as far as professional development, and just kind of briefly, I'll touch on these things, is we initially knew that we needed to prepare our teachers. And when March came, we just rapid deployment of virtual learning and packets and things like that, just trying to get work to students. And so from that time period to now, we started developing a professional development series for our teachers to make sure that they have the strategies and the skills to be able to teach in a virtual platform or format, specifically giving them the skills to do asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. And so we broke our e-learning professional development series down into like 3 major parts. Focusing on the instructional model, we took our instructional model that we have in the district and we redesigned the instructional model, or not redesigned it, we modified it to fit our e-learning instructional model. So we basically took the e-learning instructional model, put it to our regular instructional model, and created the e-learning instructional model. And so we did some training in those areas. How do you set the purpose in a synchronous learning environment? How do you build engagement in a synchronous learning environment? How do you do guided practice, independent study, closure, all those things that make up our instructional model? We had to then put that in and give our teachers the PD to do that virtually. We also then, the second part of our instructional series or professional development series focused on e-learning best practices. And what does e-learning best practices look like in a classroom? So whether we are managing e-learning, how we are developing the relationships with our students in e-learning, all those things. And then the third one, the third part of the series was really about just managing for e-learning. And that's the part that we had to really work on with our teachers, managing the expectations of e-learning. What does it look like when we're talking about classroom observations? What are we talking about on how we're talking about structuring the classrooms, and just managing the workload. It is a different workload than it is when you're doing a brick and mortar classroom setting. And so we put those three focuses in play for our teachers as relates to, and provided them that as their professional learning over the summer.
Building that structure so that the classroom teaching and brick and mortar is really not the same, and folks who think it is the same really are struggling. And I think that's some of the work that we've tried to do within Baldwin-Whitehall, and not just starting in March, but some of the foundational pieces. So I know Andrea and Jill want to speak a little bit about those pieces that we've started with and how that has helped build out our structure to move forward.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing us the opportunity here in the Baldwin-Whitehall School District to present our plan that we're really excited about. And to echo some of the sentiments from Dr. Lutz, we did start some of this pre-COVID, before March, and it really just, a lot of teachers were forced, or educators were forced out of their comfort zone. So where you were taking things slowly, it was, hey, the beginning of the year is coming. And to Dr. Davis's point, we had to be ready, and we had to be ready to, provide students with meaningful and purposeful instruction to, that was aligned to standards and growth and moving forward. So prior to March, our philosophy in moving forward was much like what we were trying to promote for students. We talk a lot about voice and choice and flexibility and personalized learning. And that really fell into our differentiated supervision action plan, which we call our DSAP here at Baldwin-Whitehall. And the DSAP really allowed teachers to have some freedom and really take ownership over their professional development path and what they were going to do within their content area or within their practice to really promote student growth. Our DSAP, it really promoted that in terms of it being purposeful and meaningful and definitely innovative. And I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, and she's going to talk a little bit about how we approach that over the summer. One of the focuses over the summer was that the DSAP had to be focused on virtual learning and looking at both hybrid and remote learners and how we were going to meet their needs. But while doing that, it also had to be aligned to our district vision and the pillars that were set forth by our superintendent, Dr. Lutz, around student growth and learning.
Thank you, Jill. So just to provide you a little more information regarding our professional development point, and Jill hit on, Jill hit on this just a little bit. We developed the differentiated supervision action model about 5 years ago. So that really did allow teachers to pick essentially a passion project and to develop in their own professional career and make it meaningful to them. So we continued with that professional development throughout this summer. And what typically happens in years past, and really what helped set us up, with all of the things going on around COVID and really having to fast forward our professional development, where typically we often start off the year with X amount of days, we knew that we had to do a lot of work over the summer. So the DSAP provided an opportunity and has provided an opportunity for our teaching staff to participate in 14 hours of professional development of their choice. The only difference this summer was we did mandate that their professional development really revolve around that concept of remote learning and building their learning management platform, which we currently use Canvas. In addition to those 14 hours, we actually banked 35 hours from the 2019-2020 school year based upon what happened to us on March 13th. We really thought ahead and we thought, okay, we need to mandate that teachers participate in professional development throughout the summer, because that's not something that we typically can do or mandate. So with the 14 hours coupled with the 35 hours that we banked from the 2019-2020 school year, our teachers were required to participate in 49 hours worth of professional development this summer. And quite honestly, that really allowed us to pivot and be ready for the start of the school year, because like Dr. Davis said, and Jill just spoke about, we really were all thrown into this. And essentially, we all became first-year teachers. Regardless of what position you hold in education, everybody was entering something brand new and very scary for many of us. So the professional development for this upcoming school year was more critical than ever. So those 49 hours really allowed our teachers to get more comfortable with the Canvas learning management platform, to really rethink those instructional practices. Because what we know that can't happen, and what so many of our teachers are struggling with, is really taking what they did in brick and mortar and trying to fit it into a combination of a hybrid learning model, a remote model, in some cases, 100% remote model. So that was something that, fortunately for us, because of the DSAP plan that we had in place, it really did help us better prepare for what COVID really forced our hands to do this summer. So our teachers spent the bulk of the summer planning for the virtual platform. Of course, they certainly didn't finish everything over the summer, and they continue to do that work throughout the school year. So one of the things that we have to make sure that we do is continue that professional development. The professional development didn't and cannot stop after those 49 hours. So we do have extra time that we build into every school day for the teachers, in addition to Wednesday afternoons. And while teachers do have some of that time to continue their planning within the learning management platform and to connect with students, we've also built in professional development time around what the teachers have told us that they needed. And so I'm going to turn that back over to Jill so she can speak more specifically in regards to some of the needs that the teachers told us that they'd had for professional development and this whole new learning management system that we are enduring right now.
So during the fourth 9 weeks of last year, because that was, something that we had never experienced. And when I say we, I don't just mean our district, but our nation and the education system. We listened very carefully to what teachers told us that they needed. At the end of the year, we surveyed teachers to talk about where they felt their strengths were and where there were challenges, and how in this professional development time that we could better help them or meet their needs as we looked at the beginning of the 2020-21 school year. And some of what they talked about were, learning tools. And we talk about things like everything from Common Sense Media to Newsella, and the different tools that they could use both for hybrid and remote learners. So we looked at that, and we included some of that professional development time, really content or grade specific, based on what they needed to deliver their instruction and to deliver effective instruction for students. What the greater result of that became with the Canvas training and with teachers really taking a risk and falling forward in their practice was that we started to develop resident experts in all different areas. And the idea of the PLC really was embraced because it happened naturally. The teachers were really depending on each other to lead the way or to learn from one another. They were actually stepping forward and saying, allow me to, lead this PD or this session because I know that my colleagues need this, or I know that the students and their parents need it. Just the other night, a few weeks back, a group of our administrators and teachers got together because we know that parents and students are struggling. We have a new learning management system, as Andrea had spoken to, with Canvas. And although we offer resources to our families and to our students, we all know that everyone doesn't always take advantage of those resources, or everyone doesn't always know how to begin or have a comfort level, with this online platform of learning. So we actually hosted an evening where grade level teachers would, they all got together and they made a resource video that was about 10 to 15 minutes long. And then afterwards, students and teachers worked together to answer questions and to navigate through the platforms on Canvas to help our struggling students and our parents be more familiar and more proficient with ways to be successful in the Canvas learning platform. We also worked with our local agencies. We have the libraries involved. We have something that's called Project One that's led by Marissa Gallagher, another part of our central office team, where we're really trying to reach out into the communities during these times to find out how we can better suit families. But all of it comes back to that professional development model of how schools look different today and what do we need to do as educators and school leaders to better prepare our teachers and to, more importantly, support them.
I know we could go on forever, but I want to hear more from South Carolina. So Dr. Davis, some additional thoughts coming from the South.
Yeah, we were fortunate. We've been a one-to-one school district now since about 1999, actually early 2000. We had already established our framework for one-to-one. We established a virtual school back, a virtual course offerings back in 1999, or roughly around 2000. And so we had an infrastructure and framework that was already in place. What we had to do was do some more training as new teachers were coming in, of course, every year to prepare them for being in a one-to-one school district. And so there was a kind of a culture of using technology that already existed in the school district for our students, as well as for our parents, and of course for our teachers and administrators. And so we've been a Google school district for quite a while now as well. And so we've been using Google Classrooms, and Google Classrooms is our primary systems for delivering our instruction to our students, whether it's Google Hangout, using setting up the Google Classrooms, exchanging work, sharing documents. All of that stuff has been a part of our district for quite a while now. That was very beneficial for us because we didn't have to spend a lot of time training our staff in doing that. So what we focused a lot of our training on was doing some, of course, going back again, like I stated earlier, looking at the learning model, and then ensuring that we were our learning model would support what we need to do while delivering this work virtually, because we were at the start of the school year completely virtual. We still are. We plan to remain completely virtual up until shortly in November. But we're going to use what we call, or what's being called, dual modality. And so we spent some training with our teachers on preparing them to teach in a dual modality dual modality way, which means, that for those who may not know, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but our teachers will be located in their classrooms, and they'll have some students in the physical classroom, and they'll have the remaining of those students at home or online. And so we need to make sure that we had the appropriate technology in place to allow them to do that. So whether they have the right cameras, the right touch screen boards in their classrooms, speakers, etc., and then training them on how to run a dual modality classroom. Like you all, we also included additional time for planning for our teachers and additional ongoing professional development that's embedded throughout the schedule. This additional time also gives them time to work with students individually and in small groups as needed. But we also wanted to protect that time for those students, for not just our professional development for them, but also for their opportunity to continuously plan individually and collaboratively. And so we embedded that in our schedule for our elementary schools. And also then our middle and high schools are on a very similar schedule, where teachers are given an opportunity for additional planning time. Excuse me. And so that is also additional time for us. We want to be very sincere in our efforts to allow them to have that time protected, though, that we have established for them. That's the one thing that we've heard from them is as we're trying to figure out, and I love the idea, the concept that everybody's a first year teacher, as we're trying to figure out what dual modality will look like in Richland School District 2. We need to have an opportunity for teachers to have time to plan appropriately, to collaborate, and also to provide us with feedback. So this will be an ongoing evolutionary type of process. I don't see what we start out doing in November will not look the same as what we may be doing in December or January if we are still in this process of delivering this content, delivering educational content this way.
Dr. Davis, you said, we were talking last week, and you said something that I've probably used your words 3 or 4 times since then, and you used that boxer analogy, and I'm not going to take your words, but I think, I mean, what you're sharing really fits that. I mean, the pain of the day really needs to grow for tomorrow, and I think you should share that. I think it's really, it's good.
So I came up with a list of 10 things that we need to do 10 ideas and thoughts about managing through a crisis and through a pandemic, specifically through COVID. And one of the things on the list was this notion about being flexible, and agile in the sense. So I use the analogy of a boxer and the bob and weave analogy. The whole purpose of using the bob and weave technique is not to just stand still and absorb the blow of your opponent. And so a lot of school districts, a lot of people were talking about, we're just bracing to get back to normal. And that's, to me, is not the appropriate mindset to have, not to sit still and absorb continuous blows from your opponent, which is COVID. Our notion is to bob and weave and stay flexible and agile. And when a boxer is using a technique of bobbing and weaving, it's not just a defensive technique, it's also an offensive technique, because you're looking for an opportunity to move forward and to jab, to deliver your own blow. And so our idea of delivering our own blow is putting something out there to see how it works. If that doesn't work, then we'll adjust and we'll move to the side and we'll bob and weave. But we don't want to stand still and just wait for this to be over, because we have no idea how long this is going to last. And so I've been using that analogy with my staff and with our leadership team to continue to look for opportunities to how can we advance our position to give us the advantage. And there are so many, and this ties specifically to another idea that I think that I share, which is see the positive in everything and always look for opportunity. And there's so many opportunities that COVID has given us if we look for them and we find the positive in them.
And I do agree. I think that we've heard everyone talk about the professionalism, the individualization, but also treating people as professionals. And sometimes that giving up that level of control and as administrators, taking a step back and kind of getting out of the way and absorbing the blow, but then also, like you said, the glancing blow and moving forward. So I think that's a really great point. I know there's a few questions.
I also think the idea of just knowing that learning is not going to look the same. Something else that we had talked about was the idea you said in South Carolina about high winds, days of high winds. And we talked about the inclement weather of snow days and, that, or a child that needs to stay home because he or she may be ill. Those days of not being able to access learning opportunities are long gone after what we're experiencing with COVID. And the idea of everything that an educator is planning, having that flipped classroom or being able to access both in person and through a remote option is the way that, the planning piece, when you're planning your lessons, there aren't any other options now. We can't think, and that's part of when you talk about the bobbing and weaving, that's part of that, moving forward to continue to meet those needs, because I believe education as we know it will not exist, because now it's a matter of it's always accessible, and we have to look more at that flipped classroom, the approach anytime that we're planning lessons.
Thank you. We guys are amazing. We do have some questions in the chat room, and we want to try to get those. We want to be certainly cognizant of your time. One of the questions came from actually a couple came from our colleague out there in Elizabeth Ford, who I think is, he has to ask a couple of questions. I think the first one I'll ask, and then I'll let Billy ask the second one. But this is something that we've really been hearing a lot about. And I think it's a concern, because I think teachers are under stress. They're under a lot of pressure in this environment. And the question that Todd asked is, anyone using PD, any kind of virtual PD, to help with social emotional health for their staff members?
We provide counseling. We have a part of our insurance package for our teachers is free of charge counseling sessions that come along with that, and we've encouraged them to take advantage of the counseling sessions that are provided for them. We've also talked extensively about grace and grit, and extending them the grace to make mistakes. And so we try to reduce the level of anxiety by helping them understand that we're all figuring this out together. So as long as we're learning from the mistakes and we're sharing them, then we are a continuously learning organization. And so, we attempt to do those things for them, but that's a hard thing to do. And it's really difficult, I think, to ask of school districts to try to figure out how to, depending on how large your school district is, how to put something in place that won't raise teacher anxiety, because I haven't figured that out yet, how to not raise teacher anxiety. So I just try to extend them the grace and give them the opportunity to talk about it if they need to.
Great.
It's funny, two districts hundreds of miles apart, we both have been using the word grace considerably, because not only families, teachers, students, all of us in a very unfamiliar world, grace is really a key concept, and showing a little bit of that to each other is really important.
Thanks, guys. Billy, you want to ask the next question?
Sure. The next question was suggestions that either of you might have on effective PD centered around engaging digital lessons.
I don't know if the other ladies want that one.
I can touch on a little bit of that. I think that the engagement piece is something we're really hearing at the end of the first 9 weeks as being challenging for teachers. What keeps a student coming back? How do you really engage them in learning? And, a lot of what we've seen when we put the hybrid model out at the beginning, some of our teachers were very apprehensive, as I'm sure in most districts, in regards to teaching students in front of them and teaching students through the live stream remotely. But what we found is that now that they're a couple of weeks into that, they feel that it's more engaging, or it's a better practice to have those students online with them. And I'm going to speak more to the secondary here for the 40-minute class period, and using things like breakout rooms and discussion methods to really engage the students, whether they're in person or online. We have one social studies teacher at the middle school, and what I think is so great about her class, every day her background, she takes them somewhere different. So now it's become, students are getting online because they want to know, where are we going today? So, just little things that can interest them or hook them and really marry the students at home with the remote learners. That I think is the most important piece, that the hook to get them involved and coming back.
And I think just to piggyback on what Jill said, it's certainly a challenge that we're all meeting. How do we best engage students? I would even say beyond digitally, but even in person when you are trying to balance both groups at one time. And what we're really trying to encourage our teachers to do is to think outside of the box and not, have a lesson that you typically might have in person. Think more along the lines of project-based learning, discipline, a project across many discipline levels where students can be engaged with each other and collaborate, kind of steer away from those traditional worksheets, because unfortunately, that's what a lot of the teachers are used to. So many of them are going out there and they're finding resources maybe as simple as just uploading into their Canvas, platform, or if they're using Google, whatever learning management system they may be using. So just really challenging them and providing them with research-based practices, saying the more you engage your students, the better and the more successful they will be academically. But it's certainly a challenge that we are dealing with in Baldwin-Whitehall. And to Jill's point, and I think, Dr. Davis, you alluded to that before, how things were 6-8 weeks ago, they need to continually grow and we need to get better. And just that whole concept of grace too, and, allowing teachers to fail forward and make mistakes and feel like that's okay. But that's definitely been a challenge for us as well.
I think we're going to have to strip teachers of the brick and mortar mentality of delivering education experience to students. I don't take that question lightly. I think that is a great question. How do we, build engaging lessons in a digital format or virtual learning? I kind of chuckle or struggle with it just a little bit, because our students have no problem being engaged virtually and digitally. They spend hours on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, FaceTiming, YouTube. The struggle is really probably
It's
getting
with the adults. That's right. This is their world.
Right, it's their world.
This is their world.
They're already engaged in this
Right,
world.
you're right. Yeah.
We have to come out of our box and get into their world and figure out what is the content they love and engage them that way.
I think that's a great point to really end on, and it's a good transition, guys, to next week, because next Thursday, October 29th, we're going to talk about how curriculum is changing in schools and what essential literacies we should be really teaching now K-12. And I think that really is a nice segue. Billy, what do you think on that one?
I agree. I mean, I think that's a great segue. And I think that, our students, remember, we're educating for their tomorrows, not our past, right? So we have to let go of that. I couldn't agree more with Dr. Davis and Dr. Lutz. And honestly, the entire team tonight has really presented an outstanding program. This is recorded. So for those of you who are listening, please make sure if you want to use it with your teams and your colleagues, please feel free to do so. We're housing it at the AIU 3. Dr. Rocco?
Thanks, folks, for tonight. We really appreciate Dr. Davis, your being here with us from all the way down to South Carolina. Dr. Lutz from Baldwin, which is not too far away from me. And Jill Salopek, it's great seeing you. And Andrea, it's always a pleasure working with you and seeing you again. So thanks so much. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe. Goodbye now.
Thank you. Good evening.